welcome to the part 2 of revision series of human physiology, body fluids and circulation. So this topic will first go over the very basic blood types, and which is very basic. You must have studied this in 9th standard and 10th standard also. Next we'll move over to a little more complicated, Erythroblastosis fetalis, which is conceptual. You need to know the concept. After that you can do all the questions of that. After that there are two factual topics, lymph tissue and coagulation of blood, which are both very factual. You need to know all the facts and they'll only ask question from the facts. After that, in part 3 we'll go over the more confusing topics of cardiac cycle, human heart, EKG, etc. So first of all, blood types. In NCERT there are two types of blood groupings that are given, ABO and Rh blood grouping. So in ABO blood grouping, which is very basic, so a person with A blood group has antigen A. So whatever blood group they are, they have that antigen, and they have the other blood group antibodies. So for example, A has anti-B antibodies and B has anti-A antibodies, and that's why blood transfusion isn't possible between these two blood groups. Next there is O, which has neither A nor B antigen, but it has both anti-A antigen antibody and anti-B antibody. That's why it is evident that O blood group is the universal donor. And then there is AB, which is the universal recipient, because it has neither anti-A antibody or anti-B antibody, and it has both the antigens, antigen A and antigen B. So that's why it is AB. Next, rhesus factor, whichever blood group has Rh factor present in the blood cells, that is denoted as Rh positive, and whichever does not have, that is denoted as Rh negative. Next, just going over the very basic part, this you must have studied in 9th standard, alleles for A and B antigens. If you have forgotten this part, it is okay, it is not given in this chapter, but this is given in detail in 12th standard genetics part. This will come up over there, but for now, if you know a little bit, you can revise it over here itself. Alleles for A and B antigens for ABO grouping, IA, IB, I, and IA and IB are both dominant. So when both IA and IB are present, they express codominance, and the resultant blood group is AB, which is very simple. And when both only the two recessive genes are present, then O blood group is expressed. Now the very basic question, you can try this: what are the chances of O blood group in the progeny when both parents have heterozygous A blood group? Heterozygous means one dominant and one recessive. So you can see the answer is 50%. You can see the Punnett square. Next, moving over to the topic of Erythroblastosis fetalis, which is a conceptual topic. Basically, imagine an Rh positive father and Rh negative mother. So now, since the mother is Rh negative and the fetus during the first pregnancy has Rh positive antigens. So during the first pregnancy, actually there isn't any problem to the fetus, but after the delivery of the baby, the fetus's Rh antigens come in contact with mother's blood. So mother starts producing Rh antibodies, and since these anti-Rh antibodies weren't present in the mother before, the first fetus was safe. But since they are present now after the delivery, which due to the contact of Rh antigens in mother's blood, they pose a problem to the second fetus. It can be fatal. That means it can be fatal to the fetus, and this can cause, in NCERT there are two conditions given: anemia and jaundice to the fetus, and it can be fatal. So at the end in NCERT there is a line: this can be avoided by administering anti-Rh antibodies to the mother immediately after the delivery of the first child. So this was also very easy and very conceptual based. Actually, if you will read it one time and revise it, this will be over. This is the revision series, that's why I have gone over it very fast. Next, this is lymph or tissue fluid. So when blood is passing through capillaries and different tissues, some of the water along with some small minerals leaks out of the capillaries, and that forms tissue fluid. So tissue fluid, you have to remember few facts where questions can be asked. So tissue fluids, they do not have larger proteins. Why don't they have larger proteins? Because larger proteins cannot seep out of the blood vessels. They cannot slip out of the blood vessels. Therefore, they do not have larger proteins. Remember it like that. Next, tissue fluids has the same mineral concentration as that of plasma, which is an NCERT line, and it is an important line and you have to remember it. Next, exchange of nutrients and gases between blood and cells takes place through this fluid, which is also an NCERT line. These three are three important facts where questions can be asked. Next, what is lymph system? So the fluid, tissue fluid, is drained from lymphatic vessels to a major vein, and the fluid present is then called lymph fluid, which is just the tissue fluid, but it is now in lymphatic vessels. And then, as you know, that this is responsible for immune response, that is why lymph tissue fluid. Next, there are two more important NCERT lines, which are important carriers of nutrients and hormones. Lymph is important carrier of nutrients and hormones. And next, fats are absorbed through lymph in the lacteals in the intestinal villi. This last point you must have studied already in your digestion and absorption. Fats are absorbed through lymph in the lacteals, which are present in intestinal villi. Next, coagulation of blood. This also I'll go over very fast because this is revision series and this is very factual. So NCERT mentions when you cut your skin, you can observe a reddish brown scum mass present over there. This is the words that NCERT used to describe the layer which is formed after you cut your skin. So NCERT says that is because of the fibrin proteins. All the RBCs get trapped in the fibrin protein and that causes coagulation. So there is very basic process of coagulation of blood which is given in NCERT, which is fibrins are formed from fibrinogen because of this tissue protein called thrombin. You must remember this from part 1. Thrombins, which is one of the coagulation factors, one of the proteinaceous factors in the blood. So remember that fibrinogen is inactive and it is activated by thrombin, which converts it into fibrin. And this thrombin is present in an inactive form called prothrombin, which is converted into thrombin by thrombokinase. You have to remember this flowchart. You can draw this once or twice. And thrombokinase is formed from a complicated enzyme cascade process. The cascade process is not important, but it is important to know that it is formed as a result of a cascade process. Next, you have to also remember that it happens in presence of calcium ions. The last line of coagulation of blood, it is written that calcium ion play an important role in coagulation of blood. Another NCERT factual line that you have to remember, that is tissue also releases tissue thromboplastin that helps in the process of coagulation. Tissue releases tissue thromboplastin that helps in the process of also helps in the process of coagulation. So with this was very quickly we have completed all the basic part of this chapter. Next we'll move over to human heart, systemic and pulmonary circulation, a cardiac cycle, and after that in part 4 we'll finish it off with the EKG part and the diseases related to heart and circulatory system.